UKIP, Nigel Farage, now of LBC and Fox News. Welcome.
Good morning.
To you. Before we come on to Europe, I just want to ask you about North Korea, because, I mean, you have spoken privately to Donald Trump. What do you think America should do in the face of these escalating tests?
Well, it's making it very clear, so far and no further, and I would think they probably mean it. I mean, look, I think the big picture is that back in the 1930s we allowed an out-of-control German chancellor to break the rules, break the rules, break the rules. We all stood back and did nothing, and look where it got us. I do think the one thing Trump has to do is to get China on side. He's working like crazy to do it, but I thought when Mattis spoke overnight and used the words that he did, they mean it.
So, I mean, if it came to it now, on what we know now, you would be prepared to support some kind of military strike, would you?
I think we are dealing with a regime that is out of control, looks to me to be pretty irrational and very, very dangerous. So, yeah, if they cross the line, something's going to happen.
Do you think Brexit has been a good idea so far, bearing in mind that we're told that growth in the Eurozone is twice what it is in the UK, and we know that sterling has slid against the euro?
Well, sterling's been sliding since 2010. I mean, it's a fact that everyone forgets. And in fact, from July 2014... It's not been
below parity when you change your money at an airport.
Oh, but that's just a rip-off. I mean, if I'm not for regulation in general, but the way that holidaymakers are ripped off by foreign exchange companies, there is somewhere something should be done. No, I mean, sterling is weaker, which, of course, is why the manufacturing figures out from the UK last week were the best they've been for 3 or 4 years. We have had, ever since the euro was introduced, we have done relatively better than most of the eurozone.
Well, we're not doing so well now.
We're not doing so well now, but then, you know, these are economic cycles. Look, I think if you're going to argue about uncertainty for business and investment, I think the general election actually did more damage to that than the Brexit process. But we're entering this very crucial phase. You know, this autumn, the next few weeks, big European summit coming up towards the end of October. And we do come to a point here where we could, if Monsieur Barnier and Juncker go on being as obstructive as they are, we could waste the next 18 months of our lives negotiating something that in the end is going to get vetoed by the European Parliament anyway, whilst we're not taking full advantage of what Brexit can give us.
So what do you mean, just walk out and say hard Brexit?
You know, I think, well, there's no such thing as a hard Brexit.
Well, there is.
No, there's not. It's a democratic...
without any existing arrangements.
We voted to leave. I mean, that was what we voted for, and we voted to leave the single market. I would rather common sense prevail.
Well, the single market wasn't on the ballot paper, but...
Well, every single major figure on both the Remain side and the Leave side said, if you vote to leave, you leave in the single market. I think David Davis's approach so far has been the right one. I've been pleased that they've been pumping out policy papers and thinking, but you just look at the body language. Last week, with him and Barnier, Barnier was tetchy, difficult, came out yesterday with a whole series of insulting
David says Barnier's being silly, so I mean it's...
Well, I think that, frankly, is very mild language.
What are you saying? Just forget about the
No, I'm saying that Theresa May needs to go on the 19th of October to that summit of all of Europe's leaders, and she's got to say, these guys, namely the European Commission, are doing their utmost to stop a deal from happening because they want to keep the EU itself together, and this is bad news. It'll probably be Mrs. Merkel, I would guess, and Emmanuel Macron and everywhere else. And really, we've got to appeal above the heads of the negotiators. We've got to go straight to national governments and indeed European companies to say a trade deal is in everyone's interests.
But also, from the point of view of the 27 other members of the European Union, keeping the EU together is in their interest, isn't it?
Well, there are obviously concerns, you know, that countries like Denmark, for argument's sake, could have a referendum on this 2 or 3 years down the road. But ultimately, when it comes to a crisis, and when a national leader has to decide, is it the EU first, or is it my country and my electorate first, we know what they choose. And I think we are reaching a very important moment.
And do you think Theresa May is the best person to lead the country at this time?
Well, I don't suppose the Conservative Party could unite around anybody else, so I don't think she's a terribly good leader. She was a Remainer. I suspect in her heart she probably still is. You know, I mean, she was asked 4 times in one interview in the election campaign, do you now believe in Brexit? And all she could say was, we're carrying out the will of the people. Look, I'm not a big supporter, but I don't think we're going to get anybody else in the short term.
What about you? Are you finished with politics?
No, I mean, on Thursday, when the House of Commons is debating the Great Repeal Bill, I shall be sitting in a room with Mr Barnier and Mr Juncker and Mr Verhofstadt. So, no, I'm still watching what's going on very closely.
All right. You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.